All right, everyone. I'd like to call to order the May 21st meeting of the City Council of Courtenay, BC. And I'll just acknowledge that I'm sitting in for the mayor as acting mayor this month while he's away, and will be presiding over today's meeting. Welcome to everyone in the council chambers, including the guests in our gallery, and to Councillors Jolicoeur and Cole Hamilton, who are online with us today. We'll start by respectfully acknowledging that the land we gather on is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And I'd like to pass it over to Councillor Morin for our special acknowledgement, please.
Thank you. On behalf of Council, we wish to express our heartfelt condolences on the passing of Mike Trask, a cherished member of our community. In 1988, Mike and his daughter Heather made the groundbreaking discovery of the first Elasmosaurus fossil west of the Canadian Rockies along the Puntledge River. This significant find not only enriched our local heritage, but also inspired countless individuals to explore the wonders of paleontology. Mike's dedication to community engagement and education left an indelible mark on Courtenay, earning him recognition among the city's citizens of the century. And I knew Mike personally. My husband and my husband's very involved in the local paleontological society. And Mike was definitely a citizen scientist and contributed just a tremendous amount of research to the scientific record. So quite an accomplishment. So on behalf of Council, I extend our deepest sympathies to Mike's family and friends. His legacy will continue to inspire and educate future generations.
Thanks very much, Councillor Morin. And I know that there is a memorial service that will be taking place, I believe, at the museum on the 1st of June, is that?
I believe so.
Yes, and I'm sure there'll be notification of that in our local media. So thanks very much for that acknowledgement to a special person in our community. We'll move on with no introduction of late items. We'll move on to the adoption of the council minutes from May 7th. A motion for adoption, please. Moved by Frisch, seconded by McCollum. Any questions or comments? Anyone opposed to adoption? That's carried. And we'll move on now to staff reports. And our first item under financial services is 4.11, a development variance permit application for number 2501, number 2230 Cliff Avenue. And we'll pass this over to staff to explain, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Our manager, Nancy Goddard, is going to introduce this report, short development variance permit report.
All right, thank you. The proposal before you includes 3 variances. The purpose is to allow a relatively modest extension onto the front of the existing midline tools at this address. It is on the property, the building's on a Bearland strata, and it's actually, this particular lot is entirely encircled by some common property, the driveway and the parking lots. And then there's a couple of other strata lots up near on Cliff Avenue. So this one's quite at the back is what I'm trying to say. The 3 variances, well, maybe I'll just say one more thing about the enclosure and the extension in the front. It is meant to enclose some existing uses that are happening there already. There's often tents and bins where you can buy supplies and retail materials, and the applicants wish to have that formally enclosed with a structure. And so the 3 variances are, number 1, just varying the site coverage from the zone requires maximum 50%, and this proposal would have a 52%. And then the second variance is the front yard, which again is abutting common property and is quite a few meters. I think it's actually almost 100 meters from Cliff Avenue, and that the zoning bylaw requires a 7.5 minimum front yard setback, and the proposal is for a 0.5 meter setback. And then the other is removing the requirement for landscape and screening on the property lines of this Bearland strata lot, which we normally require in the zoning bylaw in order to screen parking and driveways from other properties, but in this case, it is actually a strata property, so that requirement is really not needed here. So staff saw all of these, evaluated all these requests as supportable and just formalizing some existing use there, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Ms. Goddard, and you've provided us with a detailed report which council has had access to. Are there any questions or comments? The recommendation's been moved by Councillor McCollum, seconded by Councillor Frisch. Any discussion? Is anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. And I will note that two representatives of the applicant are here with us today, and you're fortunate this has been dealt with fairly promptly at the start of the meeting. Thanks for being here. We'll move on to item 4.2, which is financial services, the 2024 Municipal and Regional District Tax Program, MRDT Annual Performance Report, and we'll welcome up to the podium Tanya Massa, the Comox Valley Coordinator, Experience Comox Valley, also known as 4VI, to present. Go ahead, please, Tanya.
All right. Hello and good afternoon. Yes, my name is Tanya. I'm with Experience Comox Valley. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen me present before, so I will try to be concise and happy to take any questions you have at the end. First, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm grateful to be here on the traditional and unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. Experience Comox Valley's brand strategy continues to have a strategic focus on articulating our compelling uniqueness, which lies in a combination of diverse outdoor activities, rich culinary and cultural experiences, and a welcoming community atmosphere. The work that we do is guided by the Tourism Advisory Committee, which was established in 2022 and is made up of 11 members from various sectors. And we're very grateful to these individuals, managers, tour operators, and owners that work collaboratively to make sure that we're representing the best interests of the Comox Valley as a whole. Our strategic objectives currently are to increase revenue from visitation, manage growth and benefit of visitation through seasonal and geographic dispersion, increase the competitiveness of Comox Valley as a desired destination, and support sustainable tourism initiatives and activities. Our target markets are those affluent, frequent travelers who are focused on touring and exploring new destinations, and individuals who seek to immerse themselves in the local culture, nature, and unique experiences in the communities. Our geographical locations continue to be primarily Southern Vancouver Island and Lower Mainland, with a secondary focus on Alberta, specifically Calgary and Edmonton. But new for 2024, there was the direct flight from Kelowna to Comox, which was added, and a bit of a surprise to us. We were able to pivot and provide some dollars towards increasing awareness and marketing activities in the Kelowna region. And projects. Our website, experiencecomoxvalley.ca, continues to be the main resource and hub of information for prospective travelers, people who are planning their trips, both before they're in market and while they're here, looking for things to do and inspiration for places to go. We had over 250 events submitted to our online events and festivals calendar in 2024. We created 9 new blogs. And countries of origin that were searching our website, resulting in over 82,000 visits, top countries being Canada, US, UK, Poland, France, Mexico, and Germany. It's the first time Poland had made the top 5, which was interesting to see. We also continue to collect new visual assets and added over 300 new images to our bank of images. Also in 2024, we focused on working with a 2S LGBTQIA+ content creator in order to expand our diversity, equity, and inclusion on our website. They worked with 3 different photographers to collect new visual assets that worked alongside 3 new blogs, a dedicated new landing page, as well as some social media reels and posts. Our organic social media pages on Facebook and Instagram continue to to post daily user-generated content, so real visitors and locals sharing their stories and experiences, as well as amplifying industry, so tourism businesses and tourism-related businesses, events, activities, those kind of things. On Facebook, we have a little over 20,000 followers, and Instagram actually hit 10,000 followers in early 2025. Instagram continues to grow a little more rapidly than Facebook. We also worked with 2 social media influencers for some trips in 2024. So Jensen Kentel came in the spring. She was actually a social media influencer from the Kelowna region to really increase that awareness of that new direct flight route. And BC Bob came in the fall, and he is the founder of Vancouver is Awesome and has a really large dedicated base of followers. And he's really great at just collecting organic contact while he's here in our community. Throughout the year, we also do a number of promotional campaigns, some working with partners such as nearby destination marketing organizations and communities for the annual Island Taste Trail, as well as Destination BC's consortium groups of BC Ale Trail, Ride Island, Ahoy BC, Golf VI, BC Farmers Market, and Paddle BC, which target those sectors. We also do a number of seasonal campaigns, with the fall and the spring campaigns being our largest, and then a secondary campaign in the winter each year, and our always on digital search ads with Google reached over 420,000 impressions in 2024. Alongside our seasonal campaigns, we created some sponsored editorial content for a number of different platforms, which targeted those different geographic markets, like Castanet and Okanagan Edge were obviously in the Okanagan region. Daily Hive and Curiosity focus more on Alberta region, and Vancouver is Awesome, of course, Vancouver. Each year, we also do a number of annual publications where we have a 1 to 2 page print ad in, and we continued those in 2024, as we've done in past years. And each year, we update our Comox Valley Vacation Guide, working in partnership with the Comox Valley Record, and that one has over 45,000 distribution. And we contribute the content as well as images. And in 2024, we made sure it was aligned with our new brand, or enhanced brand, I should say. We also work with broadcast marketing. So in 2024, working with CTV to develop 15-second promotional videos, 10-second closed captioning, as well as network ads, pause ads, and ads on connected TV, resulting in 2.8 million impressions in total in 2024. In addition to our marketing efforts, we also do a number of destination development activities, including industry engagement, which in 2024 worked alongside and in tandem with the tourism strategy planning process that was going on. We also did some visitor intercept surveys for ongoing market research, working with travel, trade, and media to increase the awareness of Comox Valley as a destination. And 2024 was the first full year of the new Events and Experiences Fund grant program, which had 10 successful applicants in 2024. We have our visitor information services throughout the year at the Visitor Center, which is open 5 days a week in fall, winter, and spring, and 7 days a week in the summer. During those peak summer months of July and August, we also have our mobile visitor information kiosks, which are set up in downtown cores of our 3 main communities. There's advertising opportunities for tourism businesses, a consignment gift shop, and the Visitor Center staff also do a number of community outreach events where they set up booths at. In total, there was a little over 15,000. Oh, that slide got a little bit messed up apparently, but there's a little over 15,000 visitors through in 2024. I did put some other communities there to sort of compare to give you an idea of the number of visitors other visitor centers see throughout Vancouver Island. And for spending, we had $1,226,000 in revenue. It was really great to see that the 2024 general MRDT increased by almost 11% in 2023, which was great. Our expenses totaled a little over $1,162,000, nearly half of which was those marketing activities, with visitor servicing being 42% of the expenditures and destination development 6%. For carry forward, the affordable housing program dollars that are brought in, that little over $1 million there, that's dedicated towards affordable housing from online accommodation platforms. But $142,000 of general MRDT, it was carried forward into 2025. And for this year upcoming, for the first time, we are now a new member of the Destination BC Consortium Fishing BC. So this will be a great opportunity to highlight the year-round fishing opportunities that we have in our region, both tidal and freshwater. We are working with the Comox Valley Arts to create a robust arts and culture campaign this fall. We are also enhancing our online events calendar. We heard from stakeholders and from some other presentations that I've done that people really want to see it in a calendar grid view. So that is going to be happening very shortly, actually. It should be launched by the end of this month. So there'll be an option to toggle through in various views for users to just keep it a little more user-friendly. We're also working with an influencer who is doing a really unique trip across our community and neighboring communities on his bike. It's a bike packing trip called Slow Coast, and we're working with him to get some content, as well as more short form video storytelling content for social media. And we will be having some community and industry open house engagements later on this year, this summer, for the tourism strategy plan. So a couple of exciting things to look forward to. Questions?
Thanks very much, Tanya. And we'll see if there's any questions or comments from council members. Perhaps I will ask you what you're seeing in the way of U.S. tourism, given the tariff situation and somewhat of a thaw in international relations just now.
Yeah, that's actually a very timely question because Destination BC is hosting a webinar this Friday, which I'll be attending, and they're going to be they've invited tourism businesses and destination marketing organizations to attend. They're going to be going through the latest trends and tips and just getting a pulse check on what's going on right now. So I'll have more answers at the end of this week. But obviously our message continues to be that we're a welcoming community, we're open for business. Our primary focus still being that geographic and seasonal dispersion. So we do tend to tone things down a bit in the summer, just because we know that a lot of our businesses and activities are at or near capacity. But like I said, the overall message is that we're inclusive, we're welcoming.
Thanks. Councillor Jolliker.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. And nice to see you virtually. Thanks for the report. Always a nice annual reminder of the value that Courtenay and the Comox Valley more broadly offers people when they're thinking about getting away from their everyday life. So a few questions, I guess two main questions that I had. I think one as a follow-up to your presentation last year, I'm curious to know about the relationship between the marketing that was done this year as it relates to events, particularly around outdoor-based events, and if we were able to see any markable conversion from what we've spent on advertising and partnering with those events and Mount Washington and others to tourism this year in the data that you've been able to collect.
Yeah, that's a great question and something that I haven't actually compiled. So I will go back to my office and I will do that. We do get a final report from all of the successful applicants to the Event and Experience Fund, many of which reported great numbers, including increases to their online traffic as well as digital ads, engagements and impressions. So I can compile that and I can share that with everybody when I have that ready. But yeah, there's definitely a number there.
Thanks. And the only other comment I had in the report, it speaks to some of the challenges you're having with visitors around tagging, whether it's 4VI or Comox Valley Tourism, as a means to continue to get that organic pull on social media. Maybe just a thought, what I've seen as I travel the province is that, and they'll have kind of posters in restaurants and in high busier kind of tourist locations would be kind of competition. So if you post, then you're entered into a competition for a prize, and the prize being another trip to the Comox Valley. So just an idea to help to try to get that organic reach, because I know just from moving about the city that there are a lot of folks that visit, and I think that there's a huge potential there to kind of bolster your online reach. Congrats on the good year ahead.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great idea.
Thanks, Councillor Jolliker, and over to Councillor Morin.
Thank you. I think that's funny that Councillor Jolliker brought that up because I'm famous for doing that. I've had free desserts for tagging and went to this really nice place in Yaletown and had some kind of appetizer because I, did the social media thing. So anyway, good suggestion. My question was around the sort of surveys. Acting Mayor Hillian brought up if we're seeing anything in the trends with traveling. And I know the US is reporting that they're getting their data from somewhere, that Canadian travel to the US is way down. And I'm just wondering if we have any data collection to show, how many Canadians are, coming here rather than going to the US. I know I canceled my planned trip to the US that was supposed to happen this month and will be traveling locally. So is there any of that kind of data collection and even beyond that in terms of getting general feedback?
Yeah, Destination BC and Destination Canada have those stats, so I don't know them off the top of my head, but it is something that I can absolutely find out and share. And I can share that as a link for anybody who wants to look that information up. Or like definitely just word of mouth. We were actually for the first time in 2025 at a consumer show in March, and it was incredible the number of people that said the same thing that you just said, that they had planned a trip to the US and instead they wanted to do a road trip around Vancouver Island. Even people from back east and Alberta and those types of markets. So it's definitely, it's out there. That's what kind of the mindset.
So
that
we don't
people
have surveys at the visitor center or anything like that for.
Not one that's current. The one that we did in 2024, there's results for the motivation. So the reason why people
Right.
traveled here, as well as what
Yeah,
they did
I
while they were
remember that.
here. And we also have a net promoter score, which is great to now have as a baseline, so that when we do future
Right.
surveys, we can compare. And I have those results again. Those are all on our website, but I can share those too.
Great, thank you.
Thanks very much, Tanya. We appreciate your presentation and your positive outlook as you carry on with this work. And we do have a recommendation that council approve the 2024 MRDT annual performance and financial reports. Mover and seconder, please.
Second.
Moved by Frisch, seconded by Moran. Any questions or comments? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks again, Tanya. And we'll move on to item 4.22, the fall 2025 municipal security issuing resolution. Over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor to council, we have a comprehensive report on that borrowing here. Mr. Langemeyer is here for questions. It's relatively straightforward. We hadn't planned a presentation, so we're here for questions if council has them.
Okay, and this is something that takes place every year in order that the city's got the resources to spend. Mr. Langemeyer, comment from you?
So this is, first of all, nice to be here once again. This is one of the near final steps in securing long-term debt. The MFA does hold two debt issues per year in the spring and the fall. Before you, I have two projects and associated loan authorization bylaws to seek a security issuing resolution. So what happens is council sets how much to borrow and the term of the loan. This information is forwarded to the regional district, who really acts as a conduit from municipalities through to the MFA to really nail down how much debt is being taken on at the provincial level by the MFA. So before you really have two options. In the report, I outlined that, the first option is go with a 20-year amortization period for the loan or a 15-year. Looking at the cash balances in the sewer fund and in the general fund, I came to the recommendation that, per the financial plan and the budget, we said 20 years, but given where the impact to the actual annual debt servicing cost is and the possible reduction in interest expense over a 15-year term versus a 20-year term, I made the recommendation that, council could make the decision to shorten the amortization period. There'll be a little bit of increase to the annual payment, but at the end of the day, there's about a $560,000 savings in interest over a 15-year period. With that, I'd take any questions.
Thanks very much, Mr. Langemeyer. Questions or comments from council members? I don't see any, so we'll thank you for that. And we do have a recommendation that council approve borrowing. It's laid out on the screen there. I won't read the entire thing. Would someone care to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Frisch, Is there a seconder? And seconded by Councillor McCollum. Questions or comments from council members? Our usual financial acumen was Councillor McCollum remained silent, so it looks good to her. With no further discussion, we'll see. Is anyone opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks very much. And we shall move along to item 4.3. Oh, Mr. Garbutt. Oh, sorry, your light was on there. We'll move along to item 4.31, the 2025 UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund applications, and over to staff.
Thank you. It's too quick on the button, Acting Mayor. The staff report we have in front of you is a joint application with the Regional District, Town of Comox, Village of Cumberland, and Comox First Nation to have some critical funding through UBCM. This is the same ask that's going to all the different jurisdictions. Chief McDonald is here for questions if you have them. This community emergency preparedness fund has been very, very successful, and it's helped coordinate activities very, very effectively in the valley, and it represents our ongoing joint commitment to managing emergency services issues. And fortunately, we continue to have a very stable and unexciting emergency forecast for us. But now that I've said that, we'll have something next week. If council has any questions, Chief McDonald's here.
Thanks, Mr. Garbutt. Questions or comments from council members? I know some people have already heard about this at the Regional District. We also have a comprehensive staff report. And seeing no questions, we'll ask if someone is prepared to move the recommendation that council approve the submission. Moved by McCollum, seconded by Morin. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those, any opposed? That is carried. And just for clarification, I ask if there's anyone opposed because with two people online, it makes it easier to confirm the vote. So thanks very much. That is carried. And we shall move on to item 4.4 under Recreation, Culture and Community Services. We have item 4.41, the Extreme Weather Response Shelter End of Season Report. And it looks like we have staff to speak to this.
Through the Acting Mayor, our Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services, Susie Saunders, will introduce this report.
Thank you. Through the Acting Mayor to Council, this report is to provide Council with a summary on the provision of an extreme weather response shelter at 971 Cumberland Road for the 2024-2025 season, and seek direction from Council to distribute this report to our local government partners and Comox First Nation. So as Council is aware, last December, Council authorized the use of 971 Cumberland Road as a winter shelter. Starting in December, construction on renovations at the location started, and the site was opened in early February 2025. It was a very rapid and quick activation of the location that took many partners, including the operator, Lookout Housing and Health Society, and peer organizations to be able to pull this together. The report provides a summary of what we've heard, both from the operator, from service partners, from the community, and presents some considerations for future shelter activation in the Comox Valley. There's also an attachment of Lookout's final report that they provided to the city. Just to summarize a few key items, the site was activated 46 of 66 nights. There was 18 beds available each night, and that resulted in 668 individual stays. Through the Comox Valley Regional District, additional staffing was provided, and this was key to the shelter's activation this year. Because this is a weather-activated shelter, when the site is closed, there are no staff on site. Having a staff person available to check the site daily, respond to any concerns at the site, as well as with neighbors and whether those are businesses or residents, was critical. And the additional staffing support also enabled individual support to shelter guests through housing applications, ID recovery, etc. Partner feedback in general said that the EWR ran well this winter, and that in general communication was good and patrons were able to access the site and the services. The biggest feedback was confusion around weather thresholds, which is a common sort of critique of the extreme weather program. It's always difficult to convene staff on short notice, and we also experienced 3 property breaches during the season. Other feedback, both from the service provider and the community, is that when the EWR program was closed, there was increased gathering of individuals both at the property as well as in the neighborhood. So as folks come to the site and find out it's closed, they either will look for shelter at that location or flow through the rest of the neighborhood looking for safe places to shelter. Our bylaw services team did observe an increase in pedestrian traffic and congregation in the area and initiated proactive patrols, but we did not receive any specific bylaw complaints. Partners and community both agree that enhanced community engagement, peer collaboration, and more communication would be of benefit in the future. As council is aware, the site was activated on very quick notice, and so there was no engagement with neighbors prior to opening. There was a letter sent from the operator to neighbors within 100 meters. The city did receive feedback at that time from residents and neighbors and businesses, but we did not receive any complaints or calls during the season, nor did the operator. That said, when we hosted an open house in May and had residents attend, we did receive feedback at that time that's summarized in the report. But generally, the concerns were related to the location's proximity to schools and to daycare, that the service was unpredictable, and that there was a sense of a lack of transparency around the city's plans for that site and how we went about activating it under the emergency conditions last year. As I said before, the biggest feedback from the community was that due to the inconsistent activation of the program under the EWR funding model, that led to increased sheltering and congregation in the neighborhood as folks would arrive at the site and not have anywhere else to go. And then in the report, we outline considerations that will be included in the winter shelter strategy that the City of Courtenay is leading the development of on behalf of the region. Just to highlight a few considerations, looking at how we select a site and creating a site plan that includes partners, neighbors, and businesses, and strategies to minimize the impact, and trying to do that as early as possible. Involvement of peers in the program planning, preparing the site and usage guidelines, and supporting each other in activating the space. Ensuring that outreach and additional staffing is offered if it's not sufficiently covered through the BC Housing funding programs. To consider looking at a temporary winter shelter model where shelter is provided consistently each night from November through March or April, as opposed to being weather activated, and looking at working with key partners to establish a community safety plan in advance of any shelter opening. So really bringing community together, bylaw, RCMP, and the operator in the city to proactively plan for the activation of the site. In terms of next steps, staff are still working on the development of the winter shelter strategy. We expect that to be complete this summer. And the recommendation before you is to share this information with other local governments and Comox First Nation, and requested to make a delegation to the Comox Valley Regional District. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much for that report and for all the work of staff in providing this service for that period of time in the winter. I will just ask, okay, Councillor Jolicoeur, we'll give you the floor.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. And thanks for the really fulsome report from staff and for all the community members who provided feedback, the service provider, the peers who were both utilizing the service, but also working to support the service. And really happy to hear about the concrete examples of ways that we can support the next iteration of, and as staff have just kind of shared, you know, we're hoping for a more consistent temporary solution in a winter shelter rather than an extreme weather response shelter. And I really see a lot of the concerns being related to the emergency nature of this year's approach in trying to locate a facility that was that met the needs of the extreme weather response shelter. And so, and just reviewing, the report really highlights, I think, some of the key themes, a lot related to transparency, communication, both to the general public and neighbors, but also to the users of the facility. And so, and in the attachment from the service provider, Lookout Housing, highlighted a real concrete, some concrete examples from local businesses. And I did want to also highlight that there was additional support, and staff did speak to that additional support that actually was utilized to do outreach to businesses. So I did want to just mention that specifically. And I guess a question, and I don't know if staff can answer it, but in the Lookout attachment, it speaks to concerns from businesses where they felt like the hours of operation were in fact not the hours that were communicated to them initially. And so I'm just wondering if there's a discrepancy there, if there's any context that can be provided. Was that a perception that the facility was operating because people were congregating there rather than in reality having staff there? I'm wondering if staff can speak to that particular issue that seemed to have been a concern, at least from some of the surrounding businesses.
Thanks, Councillor. Ms. Saunders is ready to respond.
Thank you through the acting mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur. I can speak to one specific miscommunication. In the very first communication about the EWR hours, it was communicated that the shelter would be open from 8:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. And in conversation with a few of the neighbors, especially those with children at the local daycare, that was very concerning as the daycare opens at 7:30 a.m. But the shelter closed at 7 a.m. every morning. It was just a miscommunication, so that was corrected early on. So that could be part of the confusion, just that very first communication that went out in its first activation, that the closing hour was incorrect. Otherwise, the feedback we heard through social media in particular was that folks didn't know when it was open and when it was closed. I would suggest some of that's just due to the nature of the weather thresholds. Otherwise, I think actually some of the feedback was people were surprised it was open when it was, because it was quite quiet when it was open. Most of the impacts seemed to be when it was closed and folks had nowhere else to go. So I think it's a sign of a well-operated site. I won't say that there weren't impacts. The community shared that there were. But I think generally it was hard to tell when it was opened or closed, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and if I can,
Councillor Jolicoeur with your follow-up.
yeah, just as a final kind of closing comment, which is broadly just that it appears that the community is aligned with the fact that we need to do a better job of communicating next year. And I look forward to seeing the plan being brought forward by staff in conjunction with our consultants and peers and service providers around what opportunities can be planned for now for next winter. Thanks again for the report.
Thanks for that. And just on the topic of consultants, I was going to ask Ms. Saunders, our notes indicate that Isha Matus Gibbs from Urban Matters was going to introduce the report. I'm assuming she either couldn't make it or you decided it wasn't necessary.
Through the acting mayor, unfortunately, due to childcare limitations, she couldn't be here at this time. So.
Thanks for clarifying that. And Councillor Morin.
Great, thanks, acting mayor. Yeah, I liked Lookout's report, and I liked the reference to the anecdotal, the sort of the takeaway stories. That was a really great inclusion, I think, of some of the outcomes of something that seems like a simple thing to provide shelter, and some of the outcomes that can come out of that. I also noticed in the numbers that although the number of folks who identified as Indigenous was 17% of the folks who used the shelter, which is lower than the point in time count, it's still obviously disproportionate to non-Indigenous people accessing. So I was curious whether, I didn't see it in the report other than reporting that in Outlook's report, but I was curious whether there was any cultural supports that were available, or I know that our staff usually embeds that in everything that we do. But I just thought it was worth noting that I know you are going to be following up with the RG and Comox First Nation, but I was just curious if there was anything you could speak to on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor to Councillor Morin. I'll do my best to summarize what Lookout has shared with us. There were so I'll start with Lookout staff are trained in cultural competency and cultural safety. That's a practice of the organization. The funding model of the EWR program is extremely limited. So they are funded for 2 staff for up to 20 shelter guests for the exact operating hours of the shelter. So there is no funding for programming support, extra hours, that type of thing. But I do know and I thought it was in this report, but it must have been in a different one, that they did set up a few cultural specific practices in the shelter. But to be honest, and then Lookout would say the same thing, it is very limited, and it is based on the unfortunate reality that the funding model for EWRs is extremely small and low, and very focused on just providing a very basic safe space to sleep. But I do know Lookout staff are well trained, and that they did offer a few cultural practices during the shelter, but I wouldn't want to elaborate further on that.
Thank you. I mean, that might be good feedback for us to take to UBCM and others in terms of this funding, just to provide that. And I also know that some of the outreach people were connecting as well, so there would be some of that that extra support, hopefully within that outreach model. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morin. And Ms. Saunders, I wonder if you could just clarify what we will be doing to assure that this service is provided and we know about it far in advance of the winter weather for next year.
Thank you. Through to the acting mayor. Staff are taking what we've learned from this season, and we'll be embedding it in the winter shelter strategy that will come back to council and the other local governments for acceptance and approval. And that will help guide us on selecting locations, activating locations. And we hope to do that this summer. As council is well aware, we looked at over 60 properties over the last 2 years, including getting quite far into lease negotiations and discussions, and we're unable to secure any other appropriate property in the Comox Valley. 971 Cumberland Road was the only property that we were able to secure that was appropriate in a generally acceptable area. That situation hasn't changed significantly in the last sort of 4 months since we activated. So we will need to look back at that list and look at all the properties that were considered, the property that was activated, and make those recommendations to council and local governments about how we find another property. We do know that BC Housing's funding decisions happen in the summer around temporary winter shelter. And for EWR, they happen at the end of September. So our goal is to have properties identified and recommended in that timeframe.
Thanks for that. And of course, in an ideal world, BC Housing would not only fund these services, but would do the legwork to find them and operate them. But in the lapse of that, very grateful that our staff have worked so hard to bring the service about. We do have a recommendation that council receive the report, send it to our local government partners, and have staff make a presentation to the regional district. Would someone care to move?
So moved.
Moved by McCollum, seconded by Cole Hamilton. Any comments or questions? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much once again. And we'll move on to item 4.42, the Woodcote Park Playground Replacement and What We Heard report. Mr. Garbutt? Whoops. We've got Ms. Chan all ready to go, so we'll turn it over to her. Thanks.
Thank you, through acting Mayor Halian and council. I'm here today to speak about the Woodcote Park replacement project. We also have joining us via Zoom is Katya Yushimnova from PLW Landscape Architects, who's the lead consultant on the project, to answer any design-related questions. So we're here to update council on the status of the project, fundings from the What We Heard report, from the community engagement process, and seek endorsement on the preferred concept plan. So the playground replacement project is required as the existing playground is a 30-year-old playground at the end of its useful life. It's the first community playground to be designed utilizing the recently adopted Let's Play Courtney Park Playground design standards. We utilize a customized engagement strategy built upon the recent extensive engagement we received through the PPDS process. So it's an online survey that was posted for 3 weeks with 2 concept design plan options. And we also had 3 online focused interest group meetings. There were 409 survey respondents. Majority of the respondents live in the city of Courtney. Majority of the respondents were aged 19 or older. 25% of the respondents were aged 17 years or younger, and we had 50 respondents from participants 12 and under from the local schools. Next is a summary of the survey comments we received. So option 1, playing among the clouds, was identified as the preferred option. There were common suggestions to combine the natural elements of option 2 with inclusion and accessibility elements in option 1. The most popular preferred play elements identified from both concepts include risk-taking play, active play, inclusive features, and nature-based play. Some safety concerns were expressed, ensuring there's visibility, important clear sight lines throughout the park, reinforcement of separation of park exits and adjacent roads, and safety and cleanliness of sand. So concerns about hidden sharps or the use of the sand as a litter box. We're highlighting priorities for multi-generational spaces, accessible pathways, gathering spaces, shade, and water play. Also inclusive amenities for young children and neurodivergent children. Next, we have a summary of the community interest group feedback. There was feedback about inclusion of natural and sensory items such as wood stumps, logs, boulders, and music features, including Indigenous language and design. So having a scavenger card with pictures of different natural elements such as pine cones or animals, and both the Indigenous and English naming. Preference of all rubber surfacing to avoid barriers from the wood chips spilling over onto the rubber surfacing. Comments that the playground is currently underutilized due to the old age and poor condition. Recommendations for improvements to the basketball court to engage older kids. Recommendations for inclusive design elements, multi-level play, equipment accessible from the ground, and self-directed play. This is very important from a child development perspective. Also, the upgrades will encourage use by the local schools. So recommendations from the engagement process resulted in adjustments to the playing among the clouds concept plan. And we arrived at the preferred concept plan. It reflects the inclusive play elements, the multi-play levels, and self-directed play. Smaller sand play area relocated away from the swings for safety. Informal seating to encourage gathering. Consideration for additional trees and optional shade structure. And for future phases, looking to improve the basketball court and include a pavilion or shelter for gathering. So next steps of the project, we will proceed to detailed design to inform updated project costing. We would look to work with community partners for potential funding of the major play elements. Staff will proceed to final detailed design, making small changes within the assigned budget, and also include the value of community partner contributions that we're able to put together. If design requires significant changes due to the budget limitations, we will return to council for direction. We are working towards a fall 2025 project completion date. And with that, we have the recommendation before you and we welcome any questions.
Thanks very much, Ms. Chan, and we'll open it up to questions or comments from council members. I will just ask if we're aware of the inability to work with the soccer club and in relation to the Shade Pavilion, which is unfortunate. But I wonder if the report could perhaps be shared with them to give them a complete understanding of what the considerations were that prevented their ideas from moving forward.
Yes, thank you to Acting Mayor Hillian and through council. We did have a conversation about the locations and why they were selected, and definitely will follow up with them with the report. And we also let them know that for future consideration for field improvements, we would definitely engage them as an interest group.
Thanks. And Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks. I had two questions. One was along the same topic as the shade structure that was proposed. And from what I take from the report, given that the ideal location from like a community benefit perspective would be near the playground. And I believe the ask was for a partnership with the city on the construction. Would there still be the option for the men's club to be allowed to build a structure where they want without that funding partnership? Or are we just putting a pause on that request for the time being?
Thank you. Through the acting mayor to Councillor McCollum. I mean, staff would be open to having that conversation. I would say from our conversations with the soccer club, their interest is more around providing covered space for players. So although they haven't used this language, it sounds more like players' benches or covered area for players. We'd have to really look at the field dimensions and determine if that's the appropriate location to allow that kind of structure, and if it's the right fit. That field will change its orientation, or the parks team will shift the orientation to protect the goal areas, and so we'd have to take that into consideration. But generally, when we receive partner requests, we try and incorporate those within an overall park plan. And if it's not a fit for the overall park plan, we typically will say no unless there's a particular reason to go ahead with it.
Okay, thanks for that clarity. I have another question, but I'll get back in line because there's other people with hands up.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum, and we'll go to Councillor Morin.
Great, thank you. I was curious, I know in the some of the feedback was around inclusion of water play or a water feature. And I know we have water on the other side of the river accessible to folks closer to Lewis Park. But I guess I'm wondering if there was consideration for this in this park or in this location, or if it's being considered at any other playground potentially on the west side of town. Thanks.
Thank you to the acting mayor to Councillor Morin. So we do have a water gunnel, it's referred to, feature, and there were we'd considered a larger water play function, but due to budget limitations, we've come to this this proposal. And then in terms of a more fulsome or a major water play feature, we're looking at potentially Biltmore Park as a location for something like that, like another
That's
spray
great,
park.
thank you. Having grown up near Woodcote Park, and there used to be a nice little wading pool there, it'd be nice to get some water on that side,
We've
on this
heard
side
there
of
is.
town. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And Councillor Jolliker.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor, and thanks for the report. Nice to see this come forward and all the feedback, reading the feedback from community. It's really nice to see that folks participated in great numbers. I guess I had some concerns as well about the water, and so in part because I don't think I've seen what a water runnel is in real life, a splash table or a water tap, but I guess in layperson's terms, are these features that would support children and youth and potentially adults in cooling off, or are they more to play with the water?
I'm going to put this question to Katya, who's online with us.
Go ahead, Katya.
Okay, you can
And
hear me
welcome
okay?
to our meeting. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
The water play is designed as the water pump or water supply is an upstand feature, which is usually a button operated feature. So it lets out small amounts of water, typically onto a table where kids can bring in rocks or sand or leaves and make mud pies, mix them up with water, and then that water overflows into a runnel. So it's a very tactile experience and very good for kids with all abilities and a very wide range of ages. And it's very much welcoming to neurodivergent kids because it's tactile, it's quiet, and a very much creative long-term engagement. I wouldn't consider it as a cooling off feature necessarily. It's a bit small for that. It's really good for water conservation and creative play.
Yeah, if I can, Acting Mayor, for a follow-up.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I think this may be more for staff, and I understand that we went into this with a very specific ask of the community around the playground replacement, and that the assets being proposed, the features being proposed are really as a result of the engagement that was done. And I think more broadly around our work around climate mitigation, and similar to Councillor Morin, I do have concerns around that neighborhood, maybe for folks with mobility issues, et cetera, that the river is quite a distance away, even though it's not that far. And so I get curious when we consider larger capital expenses like what's being proposed, if we, there's likely water lines that will be created for the features. I guess just some curiosity if we can also run kind of a cooling off. I know that our fire chief and public works have things in store for different parks in our community, but just curious if that is an opportunity for us, or this might be an opportunity for us to consider some sort of sprinkler or something for folks to cool down in those heat domes.
And we'll give this to Ms. Saunders once I sort out why her seat isn't coming up here. Oh, there it is. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur. As outlined in the report, the budget for this playground is quite stretched at this time. We hope to be able to deliver on it exactly as it's sort of proposed in the concept design through both the detailed design work and further details on the costing of some civil works, as well as partner contributions. This project does not have the capacity to add any additional scope within its current budget. I do know that we are looking at installation of a misting station in partnership with the fire department and Comox Valley Emergency Management. The location is yet to be determined on that, so we will be looking at a location. We heard a lot through the feedback, and we continue to hear this through public engagement around shade in parks and playgrounds. So there is quite relatively speaking, a lot of shade being proposed either through trees or a shade structure, if we can incorporate that in the budget. So we are hearing lots of that through our playground design, and it is a key element. And as we look at our other park development and planning exercises that are coming up, so we have Harmston that has started through the Downtown Vitalization Local Area Plan. We have the Biltmore Park planning process underway. Those park plans will consider both climate change, the effects of heat, and how we design our playgrounds and whether or not there's water features and what those might look like. Water parks in themselves are substantial planning and capital projects that would be a different project for us to consider. But we are making note of what we heard in this feedback. It's noted in the report, for instance, there was a lot of feedback around the basketball courts, their condition and their use, as well as providing sort of a pavilion or picnic-like structure for gatherings. And so those items, as well as the requests around water, will be kept for future reference when we are looking at future park improvements at Woodcote specifically.
Thanks, Ms. Saunders. Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor. I had a question about the water feature and if that affects sort of the long-term maintenance of that design. Was that considered? Or is it, I mean, you did speak a bit about it, so it's fairly small. But maybe that's not an issue between the two options.
Ms. Saunders.
Thank you. Through Acting Mayor, Councillor Frisch. The water feature definitely was being considered in, and I think it was in one of the options previously, and we just heard through the feedback that it's definitely something the community wants. They, of course, would like a greater or a larger water feature. There is water at the park already because we have irrigation in the field and the building. We have washrooms on site. And throughout the design process, we are in discussion with our park services team to make sure that everything that's being proposed is something that's they're able to maintain, or if there are implications for it, that we would have to address that as well.
Thanks. And then regarding the partnership requests from the soccer club, did we do any preliminary work on the what that would cost to actually build what they were looking for? I know they were looking to contribute the $7,500, but maybe I missed in the report. Was there like a actual number of what that might cost?
Thank you, the acting mayor, to Councillor Frisch. There was a amount that they presented at their delegation, and they were looking to receive approximately half or $30,000. So a total project approximately 50,000 combined with both resources. And so that also includes some in-kind contributions from club members too, in terms of some labor too.
Right. And then it was mentioned that there was some feedback received about putting shade structure or possibly that same structure that the soccer club wanted near the playgrounds. Like, did that come up a lot, or is that what you're referring to in the report, that it came up a lot, or is that occasionally, or?
In the survey comments, the shade was mentioned as an important feature to have, especially as we experience climate change and hot days.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. And Councillor McCollum.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. Yeah, I wanted to circle back on the feedback we received on the basketball court. And you did speak to this already. And this project was focused on the playground aspect. It wasn't meant to be, you know, an overall picture of all the possibilities of this location. And then the request came in from the Soccer Association. But it does have me thinking that a lot of our focus on these spaces are really that playground or younger person in our community, and that we often overlook that kind of middle school, junior high age group, even though it makes up a big portion of the kids that are out. And the report does highlight that, you know, we should come back and look at that. But I'm wondering if well, I guess I have the concern that we're investing a bunch of money into this location, and then we have other park redevelopment that we're looking at, and whether or not we'll lose track of that piece, and whether or not there are like some smaller upgrades that could just see a bit of improvement on the basketball court without doing like a full redevelopment of it, like, you know, maybe upgrading the hoops and maybe not so much the surface, or I don't know, I haven't looked at it, but there's a basketball court at a dead end point on a street near my house that one of the neighbors has put out, and I see different kids from around the neighborhood there every day that don't have anything to do with the ownership of the basketball hoop. So it just makes me realize that there's a lot of interest in casually picking up a basketball from that age group, and tends to be kind of boys, sometimes girls, and I would say ages like 9 to 15. But and those are kids that are starting to lose interest in hanging out at the playground with other parents. So just wanting to hear a little bit more about what we could do to provide some amenities for that age group as well.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up an important point. And we feel that we can definitely look at that in future phases. we would want to engage with the local youth more to understand what would engage them, what would bring them out to play, what would make girls who may not identify with wanting to play on the basketball court, want to come, and maybe there's certain elements surrounding the basketball court that that we could provide. So there's opportunity for that. I know there's also, we haven't had a master plan for Woodcote Park, and it is in the long-term plan. So I think we have to put a placeholder to make sure that is addressed but make sure we do it right by engaging the local youth on that project.
All right, thanks very much. A number of us were at a playground opening in another neighborhood recently, and we know how important these resources are to our neighborhoods and to our communities in general. And Woodco, of course, is central and longstanding, badly in need of a facelift, as we know. And so we really appreciate the work that's gone into this. And we do have a recommendation that council receive the report and endorse the preferred concept plan with minor changes to be approved by staff. The mover, please. Mover McCollum, seconded by Frisch. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't on my button fast enough, but I just wanted to circle back to the numbers for the pavilion because I wasn't quite sure I understand how much was being offered by the club and how much we would have to cover in partnership. Could you just clarify that for me? Because the reason I'm asking, obviously, maybe to some, is that we're sort of letting go of an opportunity to partner with a community group who's bringing money to the table. So I'm just wondering what those numbers look like.
Thank you. So if memory conserves you correctly, about 20,000. The club was coming up with 20,000, and the city would come up with about 30,000 to contribute towards the project. And so we felt that number one, through this design process, it was important to make sure that the location of that pavilion be determined through the engagement process. Also, with it being a community asset with the city's significant contribution, that it'd be used by, be able to be used by all park users, not just the particular group. And I would say that we're not saying no to future, or just we just need to look at it from a long-term perspective and where it could be better placed.
Right. And I guess I just disagree respectfully that it necessarily would serve less people at the side of the sports field than near the playground. I mean, if we could build two, that would be wonderful. Every time I drive by and see it full of people, it's generally for sporting events, and maybe that speaks to some needs at the playground, but it seems like it would serve a lot of people. So I hope we can keep that on the radar as a possibility. I don't know what the club wants to do, but just wanted to throw in my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments. And we do have the recommendation on the table. Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. And thanks very much, Ms. Yushmanova, for being part of this project and for being with us today. And thanks to staff for this presentation. And next on our agenda, we move on to section 5, internal reports and correspondence. We have 5.1 Public Works Week. Mr. Garbutt.
Thanks. Typically with briefing notes, we don't do a lot of discussing it, but there's been a lot of heavy lifting done to celebrate Public Works Week. And Mr. Shaw just wanted to provide some important details for council.
For sure. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, through the acting mayor. To council, yeah, thanks for that. Obviously this week, if you heard on the radio quite a few times, many communities across British Columbia and North America are celebrating Public Works Week, which is officially kicked off on May 18th and follows through to a conclusion on the 24th. And like those other communities, the city of Courtenay through operational services is seeking to celebrate that as well by hosting a community event at the operations center on Saturday, May 24th. It's an open invitation to the community to partake in and obviously learn about some of the important works that we do in the operational services department. The fire department will be there to partner with us as well to showcase some of their exciting apparatuses. It'll be interactive. We hope that the community and their children, kids of all ages, come out to enjoy. There'll be some interactive experiences and some tactile experiences. I don't know that we'll be making mud pies, but I'm sure there's some sand that we can find for some kids to play in. But we're really looking forward to it, and we thank council for the opportunity to provide this event for our community.
Thanks for that. And I had the opportunity to be at the Public Works Yard yesterday for a tour by 40 students from Lake Trail grade 6. And it was a lively presentation, very informative, and kudos to the Public Works staff for putting these sessions on. And hopefully some of council will be able to get out to the open house on Saturday. A motion for receipt of the recommendation, please. Moved McCollum, seconded Moran. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. And item 5.2 regarding National Indigenous Peoples Day, Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor, again, I just want to provide some information for council. I wanted to first thank you for staff and legislative services for bringing this briefing note ahead. Just wanted to make sure council was aware of their previous direction and prepared this note that in accordance with council's direction, we're going to continue to provide in-kind and financial support on an ongoing basis for National Indigenous Peoples Day. Qualify that by confirmation from Comox First Nation that they are proceeding with the event. It's been a wonderful event, important for our community, and our staff take great pride in providing some support there. And council's shown a very strong commitment to reconciliation through this funding. I may remind council about their commitment already as well on the KFN Guardian program. And these are really, really important for our relationship. So just wanted to provide that for council. In future, receipt of the correspondence, which is the confirmation, will be on the agenda. No further information.
Thanks for that. I don't see any comments or questions from council, so we'll take a mover on the recommendation, please. Move McCollum, seconded Frisch. No questions or comments. Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much. And we'll move on to bylaws for first, second, and third reading. 6.11 loan authorization bylaw number 3184 2025 6th Street Bridge. And over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor to council, this report is in front of council based on previous direction. Mr. Langemeier is going to give an overview of the report itself, and as a city manager, I'll speak to a component when Mr. Langemeier is done prior to council's discussion.
Thanks. And Mr. Langemeier.
Nice to be here once again. So working from direction from council from the March 12th meeting, coupled with direction from the April 23rd council meeting, I'm bringing this borrowing bylaw and accompanying information report for you. So the first recommendation in there stems back to that March 12th council direction. I'm presenting a loan authorization bylaw valued at $4.3 million for the 6th Street Bridge project. The second option in there digs into that council direction from April 23rd, looking at other uses of growing communities funds and opportunities to help supplement the amount of debt needed to complete the 6th Street Bridge project. So it was a bit of a challenging report to write because I could go in and find absolutely all the funds we need to do the 6th Street Bridge, but I really needed to balance how much debt should be taken on with how much of our existing reserves should be or could be used to fund this project. I really landed on aiming for about a 50-50 debt to reserve balance. Now, you get into since this is a net new asset, we get into the balance of, who should pay. If we rely on reserves, we look at the past paying for future services. If we strictly rely on debt, we look at future taxpayers paying for current services. It's essentially a philosophical balance. So bringing it to the important part and where I got to, in option 2, the report recommends a loan of $2.5 million coupled with $1.8 million of funding coming from mainly the Growing Communities funds, reallocating pre-directed funds. So with that, we're looking to move $655,000 from affordable housing, $500,000 from the Bill Moore Park project. There's a caveat on that, as that project is set for 2027. And in the recommendation, I'm saying, let's switch gaming funds to fund Bill Moore in 27 and use the Growing Communities funds to fund the 6th Street Bridge today. we're proposed to take 400,000 from McPhee Meadows in phase one, and then to balance it out to about $245,000 from prior year surplus to bring the total alternate reserves to $1.8 million of cash and bringing our total additional loan to 2.5 million. Overall, with this second option, the total debt for the 6th Street Bridge would be $5 million worth of loans, coupled by about $6 million of grants and city's own reserves. And that's my summary for today.
Thanks for that. And Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you through acting mayor to council. Thank you very much, Mr. Langemeyer. Very good report and a description of what's accessible and available. Want to acknowledge that there's been quite a bit of just dialogue about the sticker shock related to this program. This is a transformational project that will result in significant benefit in the downtown core. Notable would be a discussion around transferring growing communities funds away from affordable housing. And I want to speak to that. Why would staff recommend making that change? When the deliberations were done around the allocation of our ICF, growing communities funds monies, my apologies. Very different housing situation. Two things have happened. The province has stepped in and taken over responsibility for the provision of affordable housing in the province. They've brought forward legislation. They've actually taken away authorities from local governments to levy charges and seek input towards those funds. Very, very, very impactful. And they're using investment through general provincial taxation in that regard. Secondly, a great deal of effort has gone into the discussion around the creation of a regional affordable housing service. These are all very important changes. The city has taken action on affordable housing on multiple occasions using our affordable housing funds that were levied through previous development to support development cost charges and offsite improvements. So the city is taking action with the monies that we have. As outlined in the staff report, we have a total of about $2.605 million in the Affordable Housing Fund. Staff feel that given the changes to the provincial legislative environment and the new service that's coming on that's supported by Courtenay taxpayers and endorsed regionally, that we have sufficient monies available to continue to play that supportive role in addressing the costs that we control as a local government. So that's why we have a recommendation in front of council, and we want to make that clear that we acknowledge that there is affordable housing issues, and in this case we have sufficient funding to fulfill our responsibility. And with that, staff are available and council has the option to move the recommendations that they have in front of them.
Thanks, Mr. Garbutt. Comments, questions from council, Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor, and thanks for this report. Yeah, reading through it, I can see where the challenge lies in laying this out and providing options based on, varying discussions around this topic from council, and then trying to land on a recommendation that anticipates what we want. And generally, the easiest way to go about this is to present one thing. So yeah, and seeing that it's actually helpful to hear your explanation as well. It goes with the staff report. I was confused about the Bill Moore 500,000, and yeah, explaining that would be essentially replaced by gaming. I wondered why it wasn't there. So that's helpful. One question I had was, one of the sources of funds available for resourcing this project is the Canadian infrastructure funds that we used to call the gas tax, or the Canadian, I don't know, Canada, I can't remember, sorry. Yeah, Canada Community Building, thank you. And there is funding available, even with what we plan to spend in that fund. It was laid out in the report that we could use 500,000 from that. and still retain what we normally keep on hand from that funding. So was that source of funds left out of this mainly because the starting point was 50, kind of a 50-50 model from the debt versus funding from reserves or unspent surplus?
Mr. Langemeyer.
That is precisely why my recommendation doesn't say use Canadian Community Building Fund or gas tax. We typically fund our pavement renewal program from there. And, you know, anytime we take one source of money from one place to another, it just leaves a hole. So I was struggling with maybe making a recommendation to use more, but once I was looking at the numbers and we're landing at that 45% debt funded for this new project, I'm like, this is a reasonable approach to spread that burden of payment over, you know, the future generations and the past. And that's where I came to my recommendation of not using gas tax.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. And maybe I can have another one because someone else.
Go ahead,
is asking
no problem.
questions right now. Yeah, and then the other question I had that didn't come up in the report, but we have definitely discussed in the past year is just our current capacity to access long-term borrowing without having to go through an AAP process, because we're under that threshold and we're getting closer to it. And wondering in constructing this recommendation, if that was something else that was kind of weighed, is that we're, you know, getting closer to that amount. Maybe we're allowing ourselves more flexibility if we're using less debt in this decision, because the next time a need to borrow comes up will be tied to a longer process in accessing those funds. I think you know what I'm saying. I'm starting to ramble a bit.
That's another very fair question. Moving the amount of borrowing for this project, that wasn't a high consideration. Even if we borrow the full $4.3 million, we're still within our approval-free limit. Looking forward to next year in the fire hall, we'll be well over the limit. So really our next big borrowing opportunity, we're going to be seeking electoral approval. So this one, that wasn't such a big consideration to try to reduce the total loan to be within the approval limit, because we are within the approval limit anyway, even at the higher loan amount.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thanks for that. And Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor. I do have a few questions for clarity, but I'll start with my first, and you can let me know if others have their lights on.
Well, we do have one person waiting, so if we'll give you a couple, and then you can take a break.
Okay. So starting on page 6 of the staff report, it speaks to projects allocated after 2023 in reference to projects funded through either the interest or the actual Growing Communities Fund. And so there's 3 sections there: the Lake Trail, pickleball, and park improvements. And so just to help my understanding, did that funding, other than the components that were funded by interest, which capital projects that were approved by council and the dollar amounts allocated through that approval process were utilized to fund those 3, the Lake Trail, pickleball, and park improvements?
Mr. Langmuir?
All those council authorized additions would be funded through interest. The original $7,655,000 allocated from the province was fully distributed or allocated by council in the 2023 financial plan.
And Mr. Langmuir, perhaps you could leave your light on, because I think you'll have a few questions here. Councillor Jolicoeur?
Yeah, thanks for that. My second question, actually similar to Councillor McCollum, when I think about the approval-free liability zone and the upcoming capital projects, and Mr. Langemeyer spoke about the fire hall upcoming, That is a little bit of a concern for me, particularly around the sequencing of those projects. Some of those are smaller amounts. I think about Sandwick to Braidwood sidewalk, and some of the other smaller, I think Anderton, there's smaller capital projects comparatively to the 20+ million for the fire hall. And so I also get curious around ways in which we might want to sequence those. And when I think about this particular loan authorization and reducing the total debt, creating potentially more room for us to go the approval-free liability zone for those smaller. And so I'm looking to staff, curious if we've given any consideration to the sequencing of the capital projects coming forward to council for consideration, recognizing no matter when the fire hall comes forward, it will push us over our limit. And so, yeah, curious about some of those other smaller capital projects, smaller in terms of dollar amounts.
Councillor, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Those capital projects and the amount of borrowing for them, they are small, and they will have quite a small impact on our overall borrowing capacity. Another piece that will impact this is what future interest rates are doing and what length of term council chooses for these. So we might be seeing recommendations when we're at the next municipal securities issuing resolution that 20 or 25 is the required amount to keep us, more within that approval-free zone.
Thanks for that. And we'll move to Councillor Morin.
Great, thank you, Acting Mayor. Have a couple, try to stick to those. The first question is around grants. Obviously, we can't factor that into the report because we don't have a crystal ball, but we, some of us are heading off to FCM. We've heard that the new federal government is going to have some grant funding coming forward for infrastructure type projects. So I'm just wondering if there's any exploration on grants or if there's anything in the works with that. Are there any opportunities for those of us going to FCM to do any lobbying, that kind of thing? That's the first question.
I don't know, Mr. Garbutt may feel comfortable responding to that, and we'll just get him sorted out here.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor, you're right. Grants everywhere. Grants. I think that's the ask from local governments across British Columbia right now. It is evolving. Staff are in tune and staying closely involved in what grants are available. We're aware that the different provincial funding programs, they've indicated that emergency response facilities and climate resilient type of facilities are part of that. So long and the short of it is we will go forward with any and all available programs. The new gas tax fund, and I'm using the incorrect term as well, Councillor McCollum, the program guidelines are coming out. So we will do that. Our re-elected MP is aware of our priorities, and our new MP, we've reached out to them, congratulating them on their election, and we'll take the same step that we did with our incoming MLA and identify our priorities. And as of this meeting, we haven't yet heard back from that MP's office, but they're getting set up. Long way of saying, yes, we will do that, and we'll look for opportunities and engage with council to support us.
Second question, Councillor Morin.
Yeah, thanks. The other question, again, it's we have the estimated cost for the fire hall at 23 million, but my understanding was that there may be some adjustments to that plan in terms of going with a more bare bones. So I guess I'm wondering if there may be some, that might not be quite that amount in the end, because that's in a roundabout way does impact on obviously the overall amount of money that's available.
Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, through the acting mayor, Councillor Warren, we have heard from council. We're looking to manage that, and we'll be reporting back to council, with that. We hope that, that essential facility will not cost as much as we had thought. That was predicated on a number of factors. Chief McDonald and our Director of Engineering and our Manager of Capital Projects, we just recently toured a brand new fire hall in our region, which is helping us get a better understanding of what our expected costs are relative to the service. And this facility that we'll talk to council about is essentially exactly and would support the same number of firefighters that we need. So it's excellent timing, and things are, sort of changing in the universe right now. So I can never give you an exact answer, but we are very hopeful that it will be in a different sort of budget scope.
Right, thank you.
And thanks for that. And Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my next question was just on the status of our unspent surplus and how our understanding or where we're landing with that figure versus when we did our budget a few months ago. We've now had our 2024 numbers audited, and I think our last meeting we had our financial statements presented. And from looking back, I couldn't find it in our previous staff report exactly what the projected available surplus was expected to be at the end of 2025, but I thought it was maybe just shy of 2 million less than what we have here. Yeah, based on some of the projections that we had when we were deciding how much surplus to use in relation to taxation. And so I guess, are you able to confirm what the difference was between what we understood in February versus when our audited financial statements were presented?
Sadly, I can't confirm what the number in February was. It would have been great to have in the report, but I do have what the actual surplus is, and looking at it, where we were about $2.3 million above that 20% target, or that 2.5 months cash on hand.
Okay, yeah, because I think when we were mulling this over through the budgeting process, we thought we were pretty close to the 20%, and now with the refined numbers, it looks like we're roughly 2 million higher than that. So I think that's why I was thinking that after the audited numbers had been finalized, that we had maybe a little more unspent surplus than we thought when we were doing our budget. Or is that a stretch, or is that likely?
No, I believe
Correct.
that's accurate. What our actuals turned out is we have a little bit more surplus than anticipated in February.
Okay, that's good. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that correctly, because my thinking is that if we do have more unspent surplus now than we thought we did when we were doing our budget, that I'm comfortable using some of that funding in order to keep the borrowing a little lower on this. It was certainly a shock seeing just how much this project has escalated, and if we do have funding available to kind of limit how much additional borrowing we need to do, I think that there's a good case to be made for utilizing that a little bit more than that 50% number that was presented in the report. So that's kind of where my thinking is on this right now.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum. And I do have a question, Mr. Langemeyer. I'm wondering if you can let us know if we go ahead with this borrowing $5 million, what's the average taxpayer's hit for that on a yearly basis?
I don't have that number in front of me, but it's something I could return to council with at the time of, well, depends when I can return to council with that one. I can either share it via email, or if I can bring it back at in a suitable council report, I can do that.
Okay, you can't ballpark it at all. Just as you know, this is a controversial project, and we've certainly received a lot of feedback from people who don't want it to go ahead. We've also received feedback from some people who support it. But I think one of the primary concerns is what is the average person going, what's the impact going to be? And maybe you have some comparable projects where you can let us know how that affects the individual tax bill. That's something you can bring back. Thanks for that. Yeah. Okay, any further comments or questions from council? Councillor Jolliker.
Yeah, and thanks, Acting Mayor. I just wanted to share, I think, and I appreciate that Mr. Garbutt spoke to one of the items in the alternative funding, 655,000 for affordable housing. I think for myself, in the absence of a clear plan of what could potentially be done with that, I feel a little reserved and uneasy with the removal of that. And so my preference would be for us to have a conversation as a council around that reserve in particular. And I think with having 4VI here today and seeing the dollars that we are getting from the OAP into that affordable housing reserve is another reminder that it'd be good for us to have that conversation around what we plan to do with those dollars. And so just a comment with the alternative recommendation number 2 that's in front of us.
Thanks for that. All right, further comments or questions? So we have 2 options on the floor. Is there someone who would care to propose a recommendation? We've got Councillor McCollum. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at this other option that's laid out, and it differs slightly from my thinking. So I guess I would have to do the math here. I wonder if I can read this in reverse. Just that there's 2 separate motions, and one is for authorizing the maximum, and then the other is reallocating funding. And what I am suggesting is that we change the amount in the staff report from what we would use from prior year surplus from 245,000 to 1 million.
So Councillor, I'm just wondering if you want me to call a short adjournment for you to put something together. I'm quite prepared to do that. It's not time for a supper break, but rather than concoct something on the fly, I'd be prepared to call a 5-minute adjournment with no objection from council.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
We'll adjourn for 5 minutes. Thanks very much. We're just about to reconvene. If our participants online could resume their camera participation, please. Thanks very much. We're reconvening after that short adjournment. And Councillor McCollum, I believe you have a motion to propose.
Yes, did you want me to read this out?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll do my best. That council amend loan authorization bylaw 3184, 2025, Sixth Street Bridge 2025 to authorize borrowing a maximum of $1,745,000 and give first, second, and third reading to loan authorization bylaw 3184, 2025, Sixth Street Bridge 2025 as amended, and that council proceed to adoption of the loan authorization bylaw 3184, 2025, Sixth Street Bridge 2025 as amended through the approval-free liability zone granted by the Municipal Liabilities Regulation, Section 7.
And is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Moran. And so if you'd like to speak to it, Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, the motion I've proposed is similar to what staff presented in the options of the report, with the change of reducing the maximum amount of borrowing by a total of $755,000, which would represent a higher usage of the same amount from our prior year surplus.
And you have a second motion that'll be coming up subsequent that will speak to that. Okay, thank you. Online, Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much, Acting Mayor. I was also wondering whether we could possibly consider applying the Canada Community Building Fund, the $500,000 there. I note that in the staff report, staff said it could be reasonable to allocate approximately $500,000 of the Canada Community Buildings Fund to the Sixth Street project. That would just obviously also help to defer some of the tax burden and the cost of borrowing. I'm just wondering if that if council would be amenable to that amendment.
You're talking about the motion currently on the floor?
Yeah, I guess I'm proposing an amendment to also include $500,000 from the CCBF.
Okay, we'll get a comment from Mr. Garbett, and then we can see if you want to make that a formal motion.
Through the acting mayor to Councillor Cole Hamilton, then that would result in, I'll check my math, $1,245,000 as the maximum borrowing. That would be the effect of reallocating that, just for clarification.
That's my math, yes.
All right, are you proposing that as an amendment, Councillor Cole Hamilton?
I am, yes.
Seconded by Councillor Moran. Would anyone like to speak? Let's just first of all be clear. The amendment is to change 1745 to 1245. Is there further wording you want to add, Councillor Cole Hamilton?
Well, I think that we'd need to add further down in the motion that this $500,000 is coming from the CCBF. The council reallocate from the CCBF $500,000 to the project towards the project.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but that would amend the second motion and wouldn't necessarily need to be included in this first one.
I'll take your word for that. I'm not sure I know what I don't have the second motion in front of me, but.
All right, so we have an amendment on the floor and Councillor Moran to speak to the amendment.
But yes,
Yeah,
I don't believe
well,
it
just
would
to
require
clarify
amendment to the
that I
second.
think, I don't know where that feedback's coming from. To clarify that, I think the second motion is where it itemizes where the money comes from. That makes
Okay, yes,
sense.
of course it would. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
flipping to the different screen
So
there.
it's just having that dollar amount in the first part of for your amendment. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, any further comment on the proposed amendment? All right, we'll ask all in favor of the amendment. Any opposed? That is carried, and now the main motion is back on the floor as amended with the amount. Would anyone like to speak to this motion?
I can't hear.
We're still on the main motion and yes, as amended. Any further discussion? All right, we will vote on this. All those in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Jolliker is opposed. All right, but the motion carries, and Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, so I'll move the next piece of this process that council reallocate. And is the math right on the total there? Yes, it is. Okay, sorry. That council reallocate $1,555,000 from the Growing Communities Fund to the 6th Street Bridge from the following projects: $655,000 from affordable housing, $500,000 from Billmore Park Development 2027, and $400,000 from McPhee Meadows Phase 1. And that council reallocate $500,000 from the Canadian Community Building Fund to the 6th Street Bridge project, and that council allocate $1 million from prior year surplus to the 6th Street Bridge project, and that council allocate $500,000 toward Billmore Park Development project in 2027 from the Gaming Fund.
Second by Councillor Frisch. All right, and did you want to speak to that any further, Councillor McCollum?
I actually did have a question for staff about just the last line of this, in that we're providing direction in 2027. And I just want to verify that that's something that we can do.
Mr. Langmeyer?
So what I do with this direction is at the next financial planning process, so 26 through 2030, we'll simply see the source of funds for that project in 2027 change from Growing Communities funds to gaming, and it'll be supported by this council resolution. So it's something we can do, and I'd like to get these direction solidified, so in 7 months from now, when we're looking at, we know why that change occurred.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Councillor Jolliker.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor. Just wanted to share some context. I'll be voting against this one as well. Beyond my previous stated concerns around the total cost of the project, I'm just not comfortable with the $655,000 removal from Growing Communities for affordable housing. So I'll be not supporting this motion on the table. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Is there any further discussion? All right, I will make a comment. As I alluded to earlier, there is controversy in the community regarding this project. I've been fielding numerous calls and emails from people who have expressed concern, while at the same time hearing from others who support the project. This has been supported by 4 successive councils in its conceptual form, although certainly not at the cost that we now find ourselves facing. If this was simply a transportation project that is going to make it easier for people on walking and on cycles and on mobility scooters to get across and complete our trail system, it's questionable whether I would support it at this cost. But given the fact that it is a significant generator of economic development in our downtown, and as Mr. Garbutt has referred to, a transformative project, that potentially opens up our riverfront in the heart of our downtown to increased commercial residential development along with waterfront access. This is an investment in the future of our community. And on many, my hope certainly is that as the city provides more information to the general public about those aspects of the project, and as people come to understand those aspects, that we will in fact see increased support for this as a major investment in the future of our community and again, transformative for our downtown. So it's on that basis that I vote in favor tonight, and we will call the question. All those in favor? And is there anyone opposed? Councillor Jolliker is opposed. The motion carries. Thanks very much. And the next item on our agenda is loan authorization bylaw 3183-2025, strategic land acquisition. And I believe this is an area where we've made a mistake and need to correct it. Mr. Langmeyer, would you like to speak to this? Or Mr. Garbutt?
Thank you. Through the acting mayor, we unfortunately had a administrative typo in what was sent to the province. And rather than simply correcting that, the province has requested and required that it come back to council. So it's in front of you. Very simple change to address the typo. Staff report provides an overview.
Thanks for that. Any questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, I'll call for someone to move recommendation 1 that council rescind third reading of loan authorization bylaw 3183-2025, strategic land acquisition 2025. Move McCollum, second Morin. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Recommendation 2 that council amend loan authorization bylaw by removing the word bridge in section 1 and replacing with strategic land acquisition, and the council give loan authorization bylaw 3183-2025, strategic land acquisition 2025, new third reading as amended. Moved by Frisch, seconded by McCollum. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. We now move on to item 6.2 for adoption, zoning amendment bylaw number 3157, medium density multi-residential RM1, and Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. We don't have a staff report to accompany this. Ms. Shealy is here in case there was any questions, but it's appropriate for council to consider and make a deliberation on this matter.
All right, I don't see anyone with questions. I believe I heard Councillor McCollum attempt to move the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Frisch. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Adoption is carried. We now have councillor reports. Councillor Cole Hamilton. Passes. Councillor Frisch. Councillor Hillian, I'll save that for the end. Councillor Jolliker. Passes. Councillor McCollum. Councillor Morin.
Meeting, so I am going to take a minute just to promote again the upcoming events on June 3rd and 4th regarding the toxic drug crisis. These are public education events, and I just want to promote them again to make sure that people know about them. On the 3rd, there is a business luncheon. I'm hoping that business folks will go to the Eventbrite, which is on all the information. It's on the city social media as well, I believe, to sign up for that. And then that evening, there's a theater performance at the Stanhagen Theater. Doors open at 6:30. The event starts at 7. And then the following day, there's a public presentation the evening of the 4th at Stanhagen Theater starting at 6:30. And we're really excited to have Lisa Lapointe, previous Chief Coroner of BC, as the keynote at the business luncheon, as well as the public event, as well as an array of amazing speakers. So these are all no charge due to the sponsorship of the City of Courtenay, Village of Cumberland, and the Community Action Initiative. And the town of Comox is participating with representation in terms of the planning and organizing. So just putting that out there, hoping that people will show up for those events. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moran. I will share with you that I've had a very busy last week or two standing in for the mayor, and I will report on those in the usual format at the beginning of next month with my report. I do want to acknowledge helping the community of Cumberland celebrate their 137th May Day on Monday, and also attending yesterday morning the award ceremony for our RCMP members locally who were recognized for their outstanding service, as well as on Friday attending the graduation of 31 young people from RCMP boot camp. And I'll be happy to fill the council in with further details on those another time. And we'll leave that item for now. Whoops, and move on to our in-camera resolution that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to sections 91I, K, and 2B of the community charter. A mover and seconder, please. Moved by Moran, seconded by Frisch. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? We will consider that carried and we'll move in camera. Thank you. Can they hear me? Yeah. So councillors Cole Hamilton and Jolicoeur, we will take a food break here in the room and we'll resume in 15 to 20 minutes if that's okay with you.